grab a coffee, pull up a chair, because this one gets pretty weird. Not just internet drama kind of weird. Like the system itself is kind of broken and we're all pretending it's fine kind of weird. Because today we're talking about Ned Fulmer again. But more specifically, why his channel numbers don't feel real. Now, if you've watched my first case study on Mr. Ned here, you already know how we got here. If you haven't, here's a quick rundown. It all started with the 2022 scandal, the Wife Guy brand collapsing in real time. And not just collapsing emotionally, but structurally. Because that persona wasn't just a personality trait, it was a business model. Sponsorships, cookbooks, a bobblehead that says "my wife," and a literal parenting podcast. His marriage wasn't just part of his life, it was part of the product. So when that broke, it didn't just damage his reputation, it removed the foundation his entire brand was built on. And once that kind of trust is gone, nothing comes back neutral. So fast forward to 2025, Ned returned to the internet with a new project, the Rock Bottom Podcast. And the first episode was huge, over 1.1 million views, which makes sense because it was the first real look at what happened, and it featured his ex-wife, who everyone was interested in hearing from. The whole situation was emotional, messy, and unresolved, so people are going to click on that and watch it. That's not suspicious, that's just straight curiosity. I think it's pretty clear that that first episode was going to get the most views. Whether that was a good move for Ned to do that, still up for debate. But then the pattern shifts, and this is where people start raising eyebrows. Because after that initial spike, that channel and his personal channel drop hard. We're talking videos struggling to hit 14,000 views, some barely cracking 1,000, which for someone who's used to pulling millions consistently is pretty rough, but also normal at the same time. That's what happens after a major controversy. Interest eventually fades. Audiences shrink. I mean, trust doesn't just rebuild itself. Except something interesting started happening. Random videos started jumping back up. Hundreds of thousands, sometimes over 1 million views again, with no clear reason. No viral moment, no major headline, no algorithm wave you can point to and go, oh, that's why. Just spikes. And that's when people stop seeing a comeback and start seeing a pattern. Because it's not just the views, it's how those views behave. People started noticing things like view counts landing on oddly clean, rounded numbers like exactly 1900 instead of the messy, uneven numbers real traffic usually creates. Then there's the engagement problem. A video with 1 million views should have tens of thousands of likes, thousands of comments with some kind of visible conversation. But instead, there were low likes, minimal comments, and the comments that are there start feeling kind of off. Like they're weirdly generic and vague, like, "So happy you're back." Ignore the haters. No real reference to the video itself. And these type of comments often appear in bursts, which starts to look less like conversation and more like deployment to some people. Now, this comment thing isn't inherently sinister, but combined with the numbers, it got some people thinking. And naturally, the internet does what it always does, and it jumps to the simplest explanation they can think of, which is bots, purchased views, and artificial engagement. Case closed. Except it's not that simple anymore. Because there's a completely legitimate way to create this exact same pattern. And it's built directly into YouTube. It's called creator promotions. And it's basically YouTube saying, hey, instead of gaming the system, just pay us. You can take your video and run it as an ad. Push it into homepages, search results, recommended feeds, pre-roll ads. You set the audience, location, interests, and a budget. Then YouTube handles the distribution. So instead of waiting for people to find your video finds them. And here's the important part. those views still count. A view from an ad looks identical to a view from a fan. Same number, same counter, same public signal. But the experience behind it is completely different because one is intentional because they actively looked for your video and chose to watch it. The other is just exposure because it was placed in front of someone whether they liked it or not because they fit the parameters of someone's ad demographic. And people behave very differently depending on which one it is. Ad viewers don't like as much, they don't comment as much, they don't subscribe as much. Not because they hate it, but because they weren't looking for it in the first place. Like, when was the last time you saw an ad of let's say a skincare product and went to the brand's channel and physically liked that video? My guess is you haven't, or at least you haven't done it very often. So suddenly you get this exact pattern. High views, low engagement, not necessarily fake, just different. Now, to be fair, promotions aren't cheap. A $100 budget might get you around 800 to 1,000 views. Meanwhile, shady bot services might promise 10,000 views for $10, which is exactly why those services still exist. But YouTube also has safeguards. Views gained through promotions don't count towards monetization thresholds. You can't just buy your way into the partner program. So even the legit system has limits. And this is where things get messy. Because from the outside, there's no visible difference between organic growth, paid promotion, or manipulated traffic. It all collapses into one number. And that's not a new problem. Not even close. Humans have been manufacturing popularity for centuries. In 1830s France, theaters literally hired people called claqueurs. Their job? Sit in the audience and clap on cue, laugh on cue, or start applause early so everyone else would follow. They took their job seriously enough that during one premiere, rival claque groups actually started fighting in the theater over who controlled the vibe. Then, in the 1950s, you get payola. This is when record labels would pay radio stations to play certain songs. Not because they're popular, but because if you hear something enough times, it starts to feel popular. That turned into a full-blown congressional scandal. Careers were destroyed, all over manufactured attention. Even the New York Times bestseller list has had to mark books with a literal dagger symbol to indicate suspicious bulk purchases. These suspicious bulk orders are sometimes done by authors or publishers to make a book look like it sold more copies than it realistically has to actual readers. Because again, if it looks popular, people assume it is. And then the internet shows up and scales this entire concept globally. MySpace gives us visible metrics like friends, views, status, and almost immediately, people start inflating them. Then YouTube monetizes views. Now popularity is money, and once money is involved, manipulation becomes inevitable. There's bots, click farms, engagement pods, then there's human labor farms, AI-generated engagement. We're at the point where bots can write comments that actually sound pretty human. So they don't just inflate numbers anymore, they can simulate discourse. At the same time, platforms are fighting back. YouTube now uses behavioral fingerprinting to identify if there's botting activity happening. They don't just look at what you do, they look at how you do it. Real humans are messy. They pause videos, scroll comments, leave, and come back. Bots, on the other hand, are efficient. Too efficient. And that's how they get caught. Hey there, Editing Fit Historian here. I have a few more details that I want to add in right here. So YouTube has increasingly leaned into systems that look for suspicious patterns. Things like repeated views from the same networks, clusters of accounts behaving identically, engagement spikes that don't match normal human activity. And when YouTube flags something as invalid traffic, it can lead to videos losing views, losing monetization, or channels getting restricted. And here's where it gets darker. because there's a phenomenon creators have been talking about for years called competitor botting. Basically, the idea is that someone can intentionally send fake engagement to another creator's channel, not to help them, but to make them look suspicious enough that the platform penalizes them. It's basically an algorithmic hit job. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but it's part of the broader environment we're in now, where fake traffic doesn't just inflate numbers, it can also become a weapon. And that's why this whole situation around Ned is so messy, because there have been allegations flying in multiple directions. Ned has even commented publicly that he isn't botting his own comments, and that if someone is doing it, they need to stop because it can hurt his channel. And at the same time, there have also been claims that bot activity has shown up in smaller creators' comment sections, with people suggesting it could be connected to this whole controversy. Do we have concrete proof of who's behind that? No. But the reason it's worth mentioning is because it shows how chaotic this ecosystem has become. At this point, the internet doesn't just argue about creators anymore. It argues through the metrics. But here's the twist. Even if you remove bots entirely, the system still produces confusion, because YouTube itself now offers visibility on demand, paid promotion, algorithmic boosting, content distribution as a service, whatever you want to call it. So we end up in this weird place where something can be completely legitimate and still look suspicious. And that brings us back to our buddy Ned. Because whether he's using promotions like he confirmed in the comments of one of his videos, whether something else is happening, or whether the internet is just reading patterns wrong, the outcome is the same. People don't trust what they're seeing. And that's the real story here. Not just, are the views fake, but what does a view even mean anymore? Because it used to mean one thing. Someone chose to watch your video. Now it could mean the video was shown to them, you paid to reach them, or the system decided for them, and all of that gets flattened into the same number. Hi, I'm back again. For a creator like Ned, who used to make serious money from wife guy sponsorships and family-friendly brand deals, this kind of metric manipulation can feel not just unnecessary, but kind of desperate. Because sponsors today aren't just looking at the big flashy number. They're looking at CPM and ROI. CPM basically means cost per 1,000 views. It's the industry's way of asking how much are we paying to get in front of 1,000 people. So if a brand sponsors a video expecting 100,000 views and pays $2,000, they're thinking, okay, that's a $20 CPM. That seems reasonable. But here's the catch. CPM only measures exposure. It doesn't measure whether that exposure actually does anything. That's where ROI comes in. ROI is what brands actually care about, because ROI answers the real question. Did this sponsorship make us money? And ROI means return on investment. So, if influencer A has 100,000 followers, but 40% of them are bots or low-quality traffic, their engagement is going to be terrible, maybe 1%. And the brand might spend $1,000 on a sponsorship and basically get nothing back because no real humans are clicking, buying, or even paying attention. Meanwhile, influencer B, who's a micro-influencer with only 10,000 followers, might have a 5% engagement rate and deliver a 150% ROI because their audience actually trusts them and listens to what they recommend. And that's why inflated metrics are such a problem, because it can make a sponsorship look like a great CPM deal while the ROI is quietly falling apart behind the scenes. The views look great, the conversions don't. And brands aren't dumb, they're going to notice. That's why sponsorship contracts now often include things like data integrity clauses, which basically translate to, if you're faking your numbers and we find out, we're taking our money back. And yes, clawbacks are real. Creators can lose deals, be forced to repay sponsorship money, and in more extreme cases, it can even start raising FTC-style questions about deceptive advertising, which could lead to fines. So the stakes here aren't just reputational, it's business. Which becomes a problem when money gets involved, because brands don't just buy content, they buy access to audiences. And they measure that access through metrics like views, engagement, and reach. And if those metrics are influenced, even slightly, then what are they actually buying? Attention or just visibility? And by 2026, brands aren't guessing anymore. Some contracts now include data integrity clauses, meaning creators have to prove their engagement is real. If it's not, they can lose deals, pay back money, or even face legal consequences. Because at the end of the day, influencer marketing only works if the audience is real. And more importantly, if the trust is real. And that's where this all loops back, because Ned's original brand wasn't just content, it was authenticity. That was the product. That's what the appeal was. So now, even if everything he's doing is technically allowed, even if every view is legitimate, even if the system itself is working exactly as designed, there's still a problem because people don't believe it. And once trust is gone, metrics can't fix it. Visibility can't fix it. Even growth can't fix it because you can buy attention, you can boost reach, you can amplify visibility, but you can't manufacture belief. And that's the paradox of the modern creator economy. The numbers matter more than ever, and at the same time, they mean less than ever before. So now, I want to know what you think. When you look at those numbers, do they feel like growth? Or do they feel like something is being held up? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more deep dives into internet culture, creator economics, and the weird systems behind all of this, subscribe, because we're definitely not done unpacking this. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!